I am working with the Kripalu Yoga Center in the United States, which is actually the largest yoga center. They have the largest yoga center in the United States. And they have developed a specific yoga curriculum for putting into the schools. It's very appropriate for putting into the schools. It's designed so it fits within the school. And we have been studying that particular yoga program. And actually, that program has been implemented in a school very close to the yoga center. And that school has been having yoga in their school for 3-4 years in a row. And we did some interviews with the principal, with some of the with some of the students in the school, with some of the teachers. And what they report is that the school is actually changing. The school is becoming a better place. The school is becoming more compassionate. There is less bullying. There is less competition. There's more compassion. There's more relationships between the students. And so the school is actually changing. And that's just one example of a school that has made that change. Now, there are many programs that are already in place, yoga in schools programs, maybe 36 of them, that are already existing in the United States in different areas across the country. So, for example, in the city of Newark, in New Jersey, 70 schools have been implementing yoga through a specific program. And so you are now starting to see, after years of this program in these schools are starting to show changes. New York City has several programs of yoga programs that are being taught across the schools in New York City. Different cities across the country in different degrees have these yoga programs being implemented. And most of these are complementary programs because the schools can't afford to pay for these programs. So these are volunteer programs, yoga teachers going into the schools because they know about the need for these students to have these yoga practices. And I believe, and we are trying to conduct research on this. Of course, the problem is that we have to get funding to do this research. So there's very little research done on yoga in schools at the present time. Maybe 24 studies. Very, very little. This is the beginning of this area. And our limitation is to get the funding for this work. It's very difficult to get funding for yoga research because the scientists that review my grant applications are conventional scientists. And many of them are not convinced that yoga has any value. So this is a very slow process. The major limitation we have in yoga research is funding. If I had $10 million in funding, I could start at Harvard Medical School a full yoga research institute and start 20 studies with 20 investigators just like that. Because the only limitation is the funding. There are scientists that desperately want to do this research. I get an email every week from a scientist that wants to do yoga research. And the institutions are open to this research. There's no resistance from Harvard Medical School to do this research. In fact, Harvard Medical School approached me to do a book on yoga. So now there is a book on yoga with Harvard Medical School on the cover, with the Harvard Medical School logo, and the title of the book is Your Brain on Yoga. Now, 15 years ago, this would have been inconceivable. So you can see the change that is happening in modern society and even in science, the opening to these practices. We are at a very, very special time in society and in history. Yoga popularity is going like this. It is a rocket ship. This field of yoga research is exploding. Every week there is a new clinical trial published on yoga. And as I say, the only limitation is the funding. So we are continually writing grant applications. This is a big challenge for us. We write 10 grant applications, maybe we'll get one. We spend a lot of time trying to get the funding. And it is a challenge of biomedical research to continue this area of work. But it is surprising that something that is so potentially transformative of the world in general relies upon something so trivial as money. So we are constantly trying to find perhaps some wealthy individuals who may say, this is society changing. This is worthwhile. Yoga has changed my life. I am wealthy. I will give you the funding to do this work. And there are some examples of individuals who have donated large amounts of money to do research in this area. For example, there is a wealthy man in New York City who donated $20 million to the University of Virginia to develop a contemplative sciences research center. So there are some examples where wealthy people are donating money to progress this work forward. And if we could find such people, this would be very helpful for us, because we spend so much of our time, instead of doing the research, we are spending our time writing grants trying to get money. We spend half of our time trying to write grants and only half of our time actually doing the research. So it's a big challenge for us. But it is moving forward. And the positive side is that there is so much research going on now that was absolutely non-existent 20 years ago. So we talk about the glass being half full and the glass being half empty. Well, the glass half full is that there is so much research now that there was never before. And the glass half empty side of the argument is that compared to modern pharmaceutical research and conventional medicine, we have this much money and they have up to the ceiling money. So that is the glass half empty where we are struggling to get funding.